Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coach Craig's Sports. I am very, very excited to share with you my NFL draft grade series. So, in this series, I'm going to be going division by division, team by team, pick by pick, giving a grade to each pick. I do not do the whole plus minus thing, so I just give A, B, C, D, F. Not too many F picks. I try to be more on the positive side, but then I'll give a grade for each pick, and then I'll give an overall grade for the team. As you see up on the screen, I'll have each pick that each team made with the letter grade, and then I'll talk about the overall grade myself. I have that written down in my notes, just so you guys don't get that overall grade right away and kind of jump to conclusions right away. But with that being said, this is the NFC West division. We're going to start off with the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they did not have a first-round pick. They traded their pick away for Marquise Hollywood Brown and a third-round pick. So they were able to acquire another third there, but obviously that first-round pick does not exist. That turned into Hollywood Brown. Obviously, now we know DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games of the year due to performance-enhancing drugs, so Hollywood Brown's probably going to be a big factor in their offense. But we're going to start off with a second-round pick in Trey McBride, tight end out of Colorado State, arguably the best tight end in this year's class. I don't hate the player. The pick itself is kind of questionable. I gave it a C grade just because you signed Zach Ertz to a 3-year extension. This is a team that likes to use multiple wide receivers. Yes, at times they like to use 2 tight end sets. Maybe they're going to shift more to that this year without DeAndre Hopkins and then having Trey McBride and Zach Ertz together. But overall, not the best pick in the world, not the highest position of need in terms of my opinion, but I still do like the player in Trey McBride. So we have Cameron Thomas, defensive end out of San Diego State. I gave this pick a C. It's a good scheme fit, but I think he was more of like a 5th-round pick, so taking him towards the end of the 3rd round, a little bit too early for me here. Not a bad pick. Hopefully he develops into somebody that they can use along that defensive line because they could use some help and some depth there overall. Then with their second pick in the 3rd round, they were able to grab Myjah Sanders, edge player out of Cincinnati, a guy that I think could be a pretty good scheme fit for them. Probably a rotational player at first, maybe develops into a starter long term. And then they didn't have another pick until the 6th round. They drafted Keontae Ingram, running back out of USC at that point. I gave this pick a C. I don't think he's a bad player, but I think what they probably were looking for more at the running back position was somebody that could catch the ball a little bit better, pass catching back, to kind of go along with what James Conner already does well. This feels more like of a direct handcuff to James Conner, so that's why I gave it a C. So maybe now in free agency, they'll add a pass-catching running back to go along with James Conner, Keontae Ingram, and then obviously, Benjamin, Jonathan Ward are there as well. And then their other 6th-round pick, they took Lacecia Smith, guard out of Virginia Tech. I gave this pick an A. Obviously, they could use some offensive line help. Probably not a guy that's going to start right away, but kind of come in, develop a little bit. Probably a guy that shouldn't have been there at the 6th round, so that's why that pick was an A. Their first 7th-round pick, they had Christian Matthew, cornerback out of Valdosta State. I gave him a C. Don't know too much about this prospect off the top of my head, but probably a guy that was a borderline draftable player. It is a little bit of position in need in a sense that you could use some more depth there. Hopefully kind of develops into somebody that can play more than special teams in the future. Then they had Jesse Luketa, edge out of Penn State. So this was one of my fallers from our Risers and Fallers Combine series. But in the 7th round, a guy that has some production, has some versatility, and maybe even has a little potential. This pick's an A. It's an easy A. Probably should have been an early day 3 guy, and he went very, very late on day 3. And then last but not least, they took Marquise Hayes, guard out of Oklahoma. I gave that pick a B. Pretty good offensive line depth there. Probably a guy that should have went in the 5th, 6th round. So definitely a solid pick overall there. Overall, a very interesting draft for the Arizona Cardinals. I did give them a C overall just because it felt like they didn't address some of their major needs that they did have. And some of the things they did address was just kind of in different ways than I would expect. But not a bad draft by any means. Could have been better. Could have been worse. Then next up, we move over to the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, they did not have a 1st or a 2nd round pick. 1st round pick went to Matthew Stafford. 2nd round pick went to a Porter, that Von Miller trade. So the first pick they had was the 40th pick in the 3rd round, where they took guard Logan Bruss out of Wisconsin. Has played some tackle in the past. Probably a good scheme fit. They could use some more offensive line depth. I think there are better players on the board at this point in time. That's just why I gave it a C, but could be a very good scheme for them overall. In the 4th round, they took Jacoby Durant, cornerback out of South Carolina State. I gave this pick a C too. It felt like a little bit of reach here. I think there's better corners on the board that they could have taken and had a better chance of developing, so that's kind of why this pick ended up being a C. 5th round, they took Kyron Williams, so this was a very hit or miss guy. Some people were really high on him, some people were really low on him. but he does offer a pass catching back upside. I gave the pick a B overall. I don't think it was too bad of a reach or anything like that, but complements kind of Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson well, and could be a pass catching back for them in the future, especially given the injury history with those two running backs. Then we move down to the first pick in the 6th round that they did have. They took Quentin Lake as safety out of UCLA, so this guy is staying in LA essentially. He is a B pick for me, a good developmental safety, good value in the 6th round, can't complain there. The very next pick, they took Darian Kendrick, cornerback out of Georgia. I give this pick an A. There is some question marks there about how athletic he is. Obviously, 40 time was not the best, but I do believe he got injured during that 40 time during his pro day as well. So can't take too much account into that, but obviously a guy that's played at two very, very big programs in Clemson and Georgia, so a lot of pedigree there. Guy that probably shouldn't have been there in the 6th round, probably was a 4th, 5th round pick for me. Some people had him even higher than that at one point in time, so definitely a good steal there. Then we get down to the 7th round. They took Daniel Hardy, linebacker out of Montana State, a very athletic, toolsy, developmental linebacker. May not end up even making the team, but maybe a guy that comes on, plays special teams, and develops for a couple of years and maybe turns into something. Russ Yeast out of Kansas State, the safety. I just don't see that much there with him. I gave him a C pick. It's just a 7th round pick. You're taking a guy that can probably help out on special teams, probably not much more, maybe develops into something else, but not too much there for me overall. And then they took A.J. Arcuri, offensive tackle out of Michigan State. A guy that I didn't expect to get drafted. His testing numbers weren't nothing great. He was okay at Michigan State. Started for about 2.5 years, 3 years. So has some experience, but not too high of upside there. Maybe he'll make the team. Maybe he doesn't even make the team. So I gave that pick a C overall. And for the Rams, I gave them a C overall. I don't like a lot of what they did. I mean, Kyron Williams is a nice change of pace, 3rd down back. Quentin Lake, I think, could develop into a decent safety in time. Darian Kendrick, I do prefer over the Jacoby Durant pick. Maybe if you even switch those two around, I'd feel a little bit better about it. I like Hardy as a developmental linebacker, but most of the rest I'm not too fond of at this point in time. Then we'll get over to the Seattle Seahawks, who didn't look like they were going to have a lot of draft picks. Then obviously they traded Russell Wilson, and they ended up with a good amount of draft picks. So the first pick they had was the 9th pick overall in the 1st round. They picked Charles Cross, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. One of my favorite offensive line prospects in this entire class. I had him as my offensive tackle number 2 in this class, which is a little bit of a hot take. I liked him better than Ike Ekwonu, which we could get to some other day, but very good value there. They obviously had a need at that position as well. Then with their first 2nd round pick, they took Boye Mafe. He's that edge rusher, defensive end, whatever you want to call him at this point in time out of Minnesota. A lot of people thought he was going to go in the 1st round. I was not one of those people. A little bit lower down the board for me, but I do give this pick a B. Could be a position of need, and hopefully they kind of develop him. A little bit undersized at this point in time, but maybe puts on a little bit of weight in that 4-3 defensive end role. Then with their second round pick, they took Kenneth Walker, running back out of Michigan State. A lot of people love this guy. I'm a little bit lower on him. Gave this pick a B overall. Just don't value running backs too much, and the NFL typically doesn't as well. But he's a guy that should come in and plug and play right away. Probably bad news for Rashad Penny, but we'll have to see how that all works out. Then in the 3rd round, they grabbed Abraham Lucas, another offensive tackle out of Washington State. I gave this pick an A. I had a 2nd round grade on Abraham Lucas, one of my favorite tackles in this entire draft. Going to be able to start right away at right tackle for them. So they grabbed a starter at left tackle and a starter at right tackle. They can start from day one. That's winning in my book, and not any questions asked about that. And oddly enough, those two tackles both kind of came from that air raid system under Mike Leach. So they're both better at pass blocking on a team that wants to run the ball. So that's kind of an interesting fact there. Then we get down to Kobe Bryant, cornerback out of Cincinnati in the 4th round. Pretty good value here. Obviously, they could use some more cornerback depth, so I gave that pick a B. In the 5th round, they took Tariq Woolen, cornerback out of UTSA. 6'4", 205 pounds, ran a 4.26 40. There's not a long history of guys that can do that at the cornerback position at that size. So definitely a good developmental player. Should be a good scheme fit in time. I gave that pick an A. Thought he would have gone probably like 3rd, 4th round, and he ended up getting him in the 5th, so that's a good value to me. And then with their other 5th round pick, we got Tyreek Smith, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. A guy coming in the year, we thought he'd be a little bit higher up on draft boards. He developed into a little bit of something more of that, and that just quite didn't happen at Ohio State. Maybe there's a little bit more left in the tank. Maybe that's the Seahawks team that could get that out of him. Or he's just a good, solid rotational player at the 5th round, so I gave that pick a B. And then we get down to the 7th round picks. We got Bo Melton, wide receiver out of Rutgers. A lot of people did love this guy. A little bit of versatility to play on the outside, play on the inside. Probably going to play in the slot more often than not at the NFL level. Good speed. 5'11", decent size at the slot position too. Obviously not anything huge, but not a little 5'8" guy or anything like that at this point in time. Good value there, so I'll give that pick an A. And then a couple picks later, they grabbed another wide receiver, Darek Young out of Lenore Ryan. Really don't know too much about this guy at this point in time, but, going back to back with the wide receiver picks there, I think there's some other players that were on the board, maybe at some other positions that you could have grabbed instead, so I did give this pick a C. But overall, this was a very, very good draft class for this Seattle Seahawks team. And I did give their overall grade for this draft an A because they accomplished a lot of good things in this draft. They didn't reach on quarterback. Obviously, there's still questions and marks there about Drew Lock and Geno Smith. Maybe they trade for Baker Mayfield, but you built a good core, and that's what you need, and you grab your quarterback next year. And oddly enough, Pete Carroll and John Schneider did not go to any of the pro days for the quarterbacks in this year's class. And then they also did sign UDFA Caleb Ellaby out of Western Michigan, who some people did have a draftable grade on. I thought he'd probably get picked as well. So just mention that as well. I try not to talk too much about the undrafted free agents because I'm just giving the grades for the overall drafts and don't want to impact it too much in that regard. Then last but not least, we got the San Francisco 49ers. They did not have a pick in the first round as well. And with their second round pick, they grabbed Drake Jackson, defensive end out of USC. So he is a guy that has a very, very high upside. I think he's going to be a great fit for the San Francisco 49ers team. I did give this pick an A. They could definitely use some help at the defensive end position. Obviously, D Ford is not the youngest guy in the world. And they lost some of those defensive linemen that they've had the past couple of years. Then in the third round, they kind of went off the wall and grabbed Ty Davis Price out of LSU. Bigger back, pretty shifty for his size, kind of a bruiser, but I don't know if he's worth a third-round pick. Probably had like a sixth-round grade on him overall myself. So he is a D pick for me. Obviously, they had Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon. They both drafted last year, but this is San Francisco, so they're always grabbing running backs anyways. And then with the last pick in the third round, they grabbed Danny Gray, wide receiver at SMU. He's a guy I'm just not exactly sure how he fits with the San Francisco 49ers team. I gave it a C overall. I think there's probably some other wide receivers you could have gone with if that was the position you were looking at. Then in the fourth round, they grabbed Spencer Burford, offensive tackle at UTSA. I gave this pick a B. Guy that's pretty versatile, can play some offensive tackle, some offensive guard, should be able to fill in if need be, but probably not a guy you want to start right away day one. Then in the fifth round, they picked Samuel Womack, cornerback out of Toledo. Sounds like he's going to be a slot guy or a developmental slot guy. I gave that pick a C. There's probably other corners at that point in time I'd rather go with. So that's kind of why I went with the C. He's not a guy that I was super high on overall. Then in the sixth round, they went with Nick Zalkelj. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. If you're watching this video or anyone in your family is watching this video, just please give me the pronunciation. I'm not trying to insult you guys by any means. He's an offensive lineman out of Fordham. I gave this pick a B too. He's one of the better late round developmental guys that was picked. So definitely think he could be a good scheme fit and kind of developed in time. Then with another sixth round pick, they had Khalil Davis, defensive tackle out of Central Florida, guy that ended up getting hurt very early on in the season, has some athletic ability. Could be kind of their DJ Jones replacement in time. So I gave that pick a B. Very good developmental player if he can stay healthy. And then with the very next pick, they went with Tariq Castro Fields, cornerback out of Penn State. I gave this pick an A. I think this is more likely to be their developmental slot corner of the future. Got some good athletic tools, some size, can play press, maybe can play on the outside as well. Got a couple of things they need to be coached up in, but could be a very good scheme fit and kind of develop in time. Then last but not least, we had Mr. Irrelevant and Brock Purdy, quarterback out of Iowa State, a guy that I didn't think was going to get drafted. But obviously he went with the very last pick of the draft. Mr. Irrelevant, we'll see if he even makes the roster, but I did give the pick a C, obviously. You could use a developmental backup quarterback behind Trey Lance if they decide to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, or even if they want to keep a third quarterback develop if they keep Jimmy around as well. Overall, I did give the 49ers draft a C. They made some good picks with Drake Jackson, Spencer Burford, and Nick, that I'm not going to say his last name, Khalil Davis, Tariq Castro Fields. Those are all good picks, but then there was some kind of head-scratcher picks in there as well, so that's kind of what knocked it down to a C. Probably be a C+ if I was giving pluses and minuses, though. But with that being said, that's kind of my thoughts for the NFC West teams as far as draft grades go. But with that being said, I'm definitely interested in hearing what your guys' thoughts are on these four teams in terms of their drafts, kind of what they did, and what you liked, what you didn't like. If you're a fan of one of these teams, let me know as well. But with that being said, if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers. Obviously, we'll be talking some NFL draft grades. If you're into DFS, especially MLB DFS, that's what I'm rocking out right now, as well as the USFL DFS. Be sure to check out those videos as well. And then, like I mentioned, I kind of be doing one division per day, team by team, pick by pick. So tomorrow's probably going to be the NFC North. definitely be sure to check out that video as well. And then with that being said, if you are new or current subscribers yet to do so, also be sure to hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time I post up a new video. And like I've been saying, I post up daily MLB DFS videos. I post up a USFL DFS video too as well. Probably going to be on Friday this week. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely be sure to check that out as well as all of the NFL draft grade videos that are coming out throughout the week. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And then last but not least, special shout out to each and every one of you watching today's video. I truly do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.